Course 3 Project Planning Terms and Definitions. B. Backward pass refers to starting with a final task or milestone and moving backwards through the schedule to determine the shortest path. Baseline, the dollar amount used to measure against to find out whether a project is on track or not and to measure the success of the project. Baseline, a budget, the act of creating a fixed reference point of spending to measure and compare a project's progress against. Bottom-up approach, thinking about all the parts of a project from the beginning to the end, including making a list of anything that comes with an associated cost and adding all of it together. Budget, the estimated monetary resources needed to achieve the project's goals and objectives. Budget pre-allocation, a situation where a budget is set before the project begins. Budget risk, the possibility that the costs of a project will increase due to poor planning or expanding the project's scope. Buffer, extra time added to the end of a task or project to account for unexpected slowdowns or delays in work progress. C. Capacity, the amount of work that the people or resources assigned to the project can reasonably complete in a set period of time. Capacity planning refers to the act of allocating people and resources to project tasks and determining whether the necessary resources required to complete the work on time have been acquired. CAPEX, capital expenses, refers to expenses which businesses incur to create a benefit in the future. Cash flow, the inflow and outflow of cash on a project. Cause and effect diagram, a visual that shows the possible causes of an event or risk, also known as a fishbone diagram. Communication, the flow of information includes everything that's shared, how it's shared, and with whom. Communication plan, a document that organizes the process, types, and expectations of communications for a project. Contingency budget, money that is included to cover potentially unforeseen events that aren't accounted for in a cost estimate. Contingency reserves, money added to the estimated project cost to manage identified risks. Cost of quality, costs that are incurred to prevent issues with products, processes, or tasks. Cost Performance Index, CPI, the ratio of the percentage complete to the actual costs. Cost variance, CV, the difference between the amount of budget expected to be spent on versus what is actually spent for work completed at a point in time. Critical path, the list of project milestones that must be reached in order to meet the project goal on schedule, as well as the mandatory tasks that contribute to the completion of each milestone. D. Decision tree, a flowchart that helps visualize the wider impact of a decision on the rest of a project. Dependency, a relationship between two project tasks, where the start or completion of one depends on the start or completion of the other. Dependency graph, a visual representing the dependencies in the flow of work during a project. Direct costs, costs that occur directly in a project. The earliest start date, in the critical path method, the earliest possible date on which a task, or the project itself, can begin. Earned value management, EVM, a technique where a project's performance or actuals for budget and schedule are regularly monitored against the planned budget and schedule. Effort estimation, a prediction of the amount and difficulty of active work required to complete a task. Empathy, a person's ability to relate to the thoughts and feelings of others. Ethical trap, an issue that may cause a person to make unethical choices. Finish to finish, FF, in this type of dependency relationship, the first task must be completed before the second task can be completed. Finish to start, FS, in this type of dependency relationship, the first task must be completed before the second task can start. Fishbone diagram, a visual that shows the possible causes of an event or risk, also known as a cause and effect diagram. Fixed contract, a contract that is paid for when certain milestones are reached. Fixed costs, costs that won't change over the course of a project. Fixed start date, the date on which work on a task must start in order to achieve a goal. Float, the amount of time that can be waited to begin a task before it impacts the project schedule and threatens the project outcome. Forecast, a cost estimate or prediction over a period of time. Forward pass, refers to starting at the beginning of a project task list and the moving forward towards the end of the project. G. Gantt chart, a horizontal bar chart that visually maps out a project schedule and tasks, with clear breakdowns of who's responsible for the work and when those tasks are due. H. High-level risk, a risk that is serious and can affect the overall success of a project, requires direct communication with stakeholders to go over plans to mitigate and address. I. Impact, the damage a risk could cause, if it occurs, determined on a scale of high, medium, or low. Indirect costs, costs that can't be linked directly to a project. Inherent risk, the measure of a risk, calculated by its probability and impact. Issue, a known and real problem that can affect the ability to complete a task. Kanban board, a visual tool used to manage tasks and workflows. Kickback, a corruption scheme where a certain percentage of an awarded contract is offered to an official who can ensure that their company wins the bid. Knowledge management, a way of ensuring that project data can be accessed in the future by others who need it for informing decisions or planning similar projects. Latest start date, in the critical path method, the latest possible date on which a task, or the project itself, can begin. Leverage experts, refers to gathering experts' insights to do something more effectively. Low-level risk, a risk that may not greatly impact the project and may have a low probability of occurring, so a project manager may or may not communicate it to stakeholders. Management reserves, a percentage of the budget set aside for unknown risks. Medium-level risk, a risk that requires direct communication with stakeholders and should be treated as urgent, as it will most likely impact the project. Milestone, an important point within the project schedule that indicates progress and usually signifies the completion of a deliverable or phase of the project. Need-to-know basis, telling someone facts they need to know at the time they need to know them, and nothing more. Network diagram, a visual that sequences project tasks in order of dependencies. Non-disclosure agreement, NDA, document that keeps confidential information within the organization. Open-ended question, a question that cannot be answered with a yes or no. OPEX, operating expenses, refers to expenses which are required for day-to-day tasks within the company. Optimism bias, when a person believes that they are unlikely to experience a negative event. Parallel tasks, tasks that can happen at the same time as other tasks. Personally identifiable information, information that could be used on its own to directly identify, contact, or precisely locate an individual includes email addresses, mailing addresses, phone numbers, precise locations, full names, and usernames. Planning fallacy, describes people's tendency to underestimate the amount of time it will take to complete a task, as well as the costs and risks associated with that task. Planning phase, the second phase of the project life cycle includes the schedule, the budget, and the risk management plan. Probability and impact matrix, a tool used to prioritize project risks. Probability, the likelihood that a risk will occur. Procurement, obtaining all of the materials, services, and supplies required to complete the project. Project budget, the estimated monetary resources needed to achieve the project's goals and objectives. Project buffer, extra time tacked onto the end of a project. Project kickoff meeting, the first meeting in which a project team comes together to ground everyone in a shared vision, gain a shared understanding of the project's goals and scope, and understand each person's individual roles within the team. Project management baseline, PMB, a clearly defined fixed starting point for your project that includes the scope, budget, and schedule. Project plan, a document that records the scope, tasks, milestones, and overall activities of a project generally contains these 5 basic elements: tasks, milestones, people, documentation, and time. Project task, an activity that needs to be accomplished within a set period of time. RE forecast, creating a separate revised budget based on how our project is tracking. Request for proposal, RFP, document that outlines the details of a project. Reserve analysis, a method to check for remaining project resources. Resource cost rate, the cost of a resource. Risk, a potential event which can occur and impact a project. Risk appetite, the willingness of an organization to accept the possible outcomes of a risk. Risk assessment, the stage of risk management where qualities of a risk are estimated or measured. Risk management, the process of identifying and evaluating potential risks and issues that could impact a project. Risk management plan, a living document that contains information regarding the identified risks, estimates of their probability and impact, and the mitigation plans for those risks. Risk register, a table or chart that contains a list of risks. Root cause, the initial cause of a situation that introduces a risk. Schedule, the project timeline, which includes the start date, the end date, and dates for events in between. Schedule performance index, SPI, the ratio of the percentage of work complete to the planned budget for the planned work. Schedule variance, SV, the difference between the amount of work expected to have been completed and the amount actually completed at a given point in time. Scope risk, the possibility that a project won't produce the results outlined in the project goals. Sequential tasks, tasks that must be completed in a specific order. Single point of failure, a risk that has the potential to be catastrophic and halt work across a project. Slack, the amount of time that a task can be delayed past its earliest start date without delaying the project. Soft skills, personal characteristics that help people work effectively with others. Sole supplier sourcing, when a company restricts the bidding process to one supplier, preventing competition. Start to finish, SF, in this type of dependency relationship, the first task must begin before the second task can be completed. Start to start, SS, in this type of dependency relationship, the second task can't begin until the first task begins. Statement of work, SO, a document that clearly lays out the products and services a vendor or contractor will provide for the organization. Subtasks, smaller tasks that are required to complete a larger task. Subject matter expert, SME, a team member with a deep understanding of a particular job, process, department, function, technology, machine, material, or type of equipment. Summary task, a header at the top of a project plan that describes a collection of subtasks. T-task buffer, extra time tagged onto a specific task. Time and materials contract, contract paid monthly based on the hours worked and other fees associated with the work, like travel and meals. Time estimation, a prediction of the total amount of time required to complete a task. Time risk, the possibility that project tasks will take longer than anticipated to complete. Time phase a budget, the act of spreading budget items out over the duration of a project. Total cost of ownership, TCO, the total cost of a project, from the initiation phase through completion. V vendors, individuals or businesses who provide goods and services to the project. W. Work breakdown structure, WBS, a tool that sorts the milestones and tasks of a project in a hierarchy, in the order they need to be completed. Page 2 Course 3 Notes Understanding Identifying Defining Creating Managing Completing Utilizing Communicating Developing Evaluating Applying Collaborating Leveraging Discussing. Here's a list of the skills you've learned in Course 2 of the Google Project Management Certificate Program, Understanding the Significance of the Project Initiation Phase in the Project Life Cycle. Identifying the key components of the project initiation phase. Defining and managing project goals, deliverables, scope, and success criteria. Creating measurable project goals and deliverables. Defining project scope and differentiating between in-scope and out-of-scope tasks. Managing scope creep to avoid impacting project goals. Completing a stakeholder analysis and explaining its significance. Utilizing RASI charts to define and communicate project team member responsibilities. Understanding the key components of project charters and developing a project charter for project initiation. Evaluating various project management tools to meet project needs. Applying SMART goals to define project scope and success criteria. Utilizing digital documents for collaboration and organization. Identifying and leveraging project management tools for different project phases. Discussing project management tools and their benefits in an interview setting. These skills encompass a broad range of foundational project management competencies that are essential for initiating and managing successful projects. Course 3 Phase 1, Beginning the Planning Phase. You will learn how the course is structured, the benefits of planning and key components of the planning phase, the difference between tasks and milestones, and how to set milestones. Learning objectives. Explain the Project Management Certificate Program structure and course functionality. Explain why milestones are important and how to set them. Explain the difference between tasks and milestones and how they are related. Describe the components of the planning phase and their significance. Fictional scenario, planning phase at Larry Jeffers Race Cars. Objective, to plan and prepare for the development of a new chassis design project at Larry Jeffers Race Cars. 1. Importance of milestones. Milestone setting. Objective, define key milestones for the chassis design project. Metrics, percentage of milestones achieved against planned timeline. Milestone completion rates. Valuation, 0.3 example milestones, completion of chassis design blueprints by week 4. Prototype testing readiness by week 8. Final design approval by week 12. Fictional scenario, planning phase at Larry Jeffers Race Cars. Objective, to plan and prepare for the development of a new chassis design project at Larry Jeffers Race Cars. 1. Importance of milestones. Milestone setting. Objective, define key milestones for the chassis design project. Metrics, percentage of milestones achieved against planned timeline. Milestone completion rates. Valuation, 0.3 Example milestones, completion of chassis design blueprints by week 4, metric, achieve 100% completion of blueprint drafts. Valuation, 0.1 Prototype testing readiness by week 8, metric, ensure all prototypes ready for testing. Valuation, 0.1 Final design approval by week 12, metric, obtain stakeholder approval for final design. Valuation, 0.1. This scenario outlines specific milestones crucial for the success of Larry Jeffers race cars chassis design project, along with associated metrics to measure progress and adherence to the project timeline. Each milestone's evaluation reflects its importance in achieving project goals and ensuring effective project management. 2. Components of the planning phase: task versus milestone clarification. Objective: clarify the distinction between tasks, actionable steps, and milestones, significant project achievements. Metrics: number of tasks identified versus milestone set. Clarity in task dependencies and milestone impacts. Valuation, 0.2 Fictional scenario, planning phase at Larry Jeffers race cars. Objective: to clarify the distinction between tasks and milestones for the new chassis design project. 2. Components of the planning phase: task versus milestone clarification. Objective: clarify the distinction between tasks, actionable steps, and milestones, significant project achievements. Metrics: number of tasks identified versus milestone set. Clarity in task dependencies and milestone impacts. Valuation, 0.2 Detailed numerical metrics, number of tasks identified versus milestone set. Tasks identified: identify 50 specific tasks necessary for the chassis design project. Milestone set: establish 5 key milestones for major project phases, for example, design completion, prototype testing. Clarity in task dependencies and milestone impacts. Task dependencies: ensure 90% of tasks have clearly defined dependencies. Milestone impacts: evaluate the impact of each milestone on project progression and stakeholder expectations. Example metrics illustration: tasks identified, 50 milestone set, 5 Clarity in task dependencies and milestone impacts. Task dependencies clarity, 90% milestone impacts clarity, 100% additional numerical metrics. Task dependency analysis: identify critical path tasks with dependencies affecting milestone timelines. Measure the average delay impact of unresolved task dependencies on milestone achievement. Milestone effectiveness: track stakeholder satisfaction scores post-milestone achievements. Evaluate milestone completion rates against planned timeline adjustments. Task completion rates: monitor weekly task completion rates to ensure alignment with milestone deadlines. Calculate the variance in task completion rates from initial projections to adjust planning strategies. This scenario continues to emphasize the importance of distinguishing between tasks and milestones in the planning phase of Larry Jeffers race cars chassis design project. The specified numerical metrics aim to ensure thorough planning, efficient task management, and successful milestone achievement throughout the project lifecycle. 3. Setting specific milestones. Objective: set measurable and specific milestones for critical project phases. Metrics: percentage completion of each milestone. Adherence to milestone deadlines. Valuation, 0.25 Example metrics for specific milestones: chassis design blueprint completion, achieve 100% by week 4. Prototype testing readiness, ensure readiness assessment completed by week 8. Final design approval, obtain approval from stakeholders by week 12. Scenario: Larry Jeffers race cars lightweight chassis development project. Setting specific milestones. Objective: set measurable and specific milestones for critical project phases. Metrics: chassis design blueprint completion. Objective: achieve 100% completion of chassis design blueprints by week 4. Metrics: percentage completion, 100% adherence to deadline, completed by week 4. Valuation, 0.25 Example, start date, January 1st. End date, January 28th. Progress, achieved 100% completion of chassis design blueprints by January 28th. Metrics achieved: percentage completion, 100% adherence to deadline, completed on time. Valuation, 0.25 Prototype testing readiness. Objective: ensure readiness assessment for prototype testing completed by week 8. Metrics: percentage completion, 100% readiness assessment completed. Adherence to deadline, completed by week 8. Valuation, 0.25 Example, start date, February 1st. End date, February 28. Progress, conducted readiness assessment for prototype testing by February 28. Metrics achieved, percentage completion, 100% readiness assessment completed, adherence to deadline, completed on time, valuation, 0.25. Prototype testing execution, objective, conduct prototype testing and gather performance data by week 12. Metrics, number of prototype tests conducted, 5 tests, performance data collected, 500 data points, adherence to deadline, completed testing by week 12, valuation, 0.25. Example, start date, March 1, end date, April 5. Progress, conducted 5 prototype tests and collected 500 data points by April 5. Metrics achieved, number of prototype tests conducted, 5 tests, performance data collected, 500 data points, adherence to deadline, completed on time, valuation, 0.25. Final design approval, objective, obtain approval from stakeholders for final design by week 16. Metrics, stakeholder approval obtained, yes, adherence to deadline, approved by week 16, valuation, 0.25. Example, start date, April 10, end date, May 15. Progress, obtained approval from stakeholders for final design by May 15. Metrics achieved, stakeholder approval obtained, yes, adherence to deadline, approved on time, valuation, 0.25. By meticulously tracking these specific milestones with detailed numerical metrics, Larry Jeffers Race Cars ensures that the lightweight chassis development project progresses according to plan, meeting key deadlines and delivering high-quality results to stakeholders. These milestones are critical for maintaining project momentum and ensuring alignment with overall project goals and objectives. 4. Planning phase execution. Planning components, objective, execute detailed planning for resources, budget, and team allocation. Metrics, budget adherence, track actual versus planned expenditures. Resource allocation efficiency, measure resource utilization against project needs. Team productivity, assess task completion rates and team contributions. Valuation, 0.25. Example metrics for planning phase execution, budget adherence, maintain a variance of 8 ± 5% from planned budget. Resource allocation efficiency, achieve 90% utilization of allocated resources. Team productivity, ensure 95% of tasks completed on schedule. Scenario, Larry Jeffers Race Cars, lightweight chassis development project objective, execute detailed planning for resources, budget, and team allocation. Metrics, budget adherence, objective, maintain a variance of 8 ± 5% from planned budget. Metrics, actual budget variance, within a ± 5% of planned budget. Budget Performance Index, BPI, achieve BPI A95%. Valuation, 0.25. Example, planned budget, $500,000, actual budget, $475,000. Budget variance, -5%. Budget Performance Index, BPI, 0.95, 475,000, 500,000. Resource allocation efficiency, objective, achieve 90% utilization of allocated resources. Metrics, resource utilization rate, achieve a 90% utilization. Resource allocation index, maintain index A90%. Valuation, 0.25. Example, allocated resources, 10 engineers utilized resources, 9 engineers. Resource utilization rate, 90%. Resource allocation index, 0.90, 9, 10. Team productivity, objective, ensure 95% of tasks completed on schedule. Metrics, task completion rate, achieve a 95% tasks completed on time. Schedule Performance Index, SPI, maintain SPI A95%. Valuation, 0.25. Example, planned tasks, 100 tasks. Completed tasks, 95 tasks on schedule. Task completion rate, 95%. Schedule Performance Index, SPI, 0.95, 95, 100. Quality assurance adherence, objective, meet quality standards throughout the planning phase. Metrics, quality control checks, conduct weekly quality assessments. Defect rate, maintain defect rate A currency 2% of total outputs. Valuation, 0.25. Example, total outputs, 500 components. Defective components, 10 components. Defect rate, 2%. Quality control checks, weekly assessments conducted. By meticulously tracking these metrics, Larry Jeffers Race Cars ensures that the planning phase for their lightweight chassis development project proceeds with precision and efficiency. These metrics not only monitor financial health and resource utilization but also guarantee adherence to quality standards and timely task completion, contributing to the project's overall success. Overall value rating, 0.9. This scenario continues to illustrate how Larry Jeffers Race Cars meticulously plans a significant project, emphasizing the importance of milestones, task clarity, and effective planning execution. The numerical metrics provided for each component ensure measurable outcomes and contribute to the overall success of the project management strategy. Introduction to Course 3. Instructor Introduction. Rowena, Senior Program Manager at Google Cloud, specializes in systems and productivity enhancements for global teams. Background: started career in retail, hospitality, and airline industry before transitioning to project management. Career journey emphasizes the importance of process improvement and automation in managing projects effectively. Course focus: kickoff of planning phase, demonstrates how to initiate the planning phase effectively. Setting milestones, importance of setting and achieving milestones, and tips for workload distribution. Budgeting, discusses the overall budgeting process, involving external stakeholders and thorough documentation. Risk management, identifies various project risks, strategies for mitigation, and ongoing monitoring. Documentation, highlights the role of comprehensive documentation in project success and stakeholder engagement. Closing, encourages learners to leverage their skills and experiences for effective project management, emphasizing continuous improvement and adaptation. Scenario: Larry Jeffers Race Cars, Lightweight Carbon Fiber Body Project Instructor Introduction. Rowena, a Senior Program Manager at Google Cloud, specializes in systems and productivity enhancements for global teams. She started her career in retail, hospitality, and the airline industry before transitioning to project management, emphasizing process improvement and automation. Course focus: kickoff of planning phase, objective, initiate the planning phase effectively for the Lightweight Carbon Fiber Body Project. Metrics: project charter completion, achieve 100% completion by week 1. Stakeholder identification, identify all stakeholders by week 2. Valuation, 0.2 example, start date, July 1st, end date, July 7th. Progress, completed the project charter, defining project scope and objectives, by July 7th. Identified all key stakeholders by July 14th. Setting milestones, objective, establish and achieve milestones for key phases of the project. Metrics: milestone achievement, achieve 90% milestone completion rate. Adherence to milestone deadlines, maintain 100% adherence to scheduled milestone dates. Valuation, 0.3 example, chassis design blueprint milestone, start date, August 1st, end date, August 15th. Progress, achieved 100% completion of chassis design blueprints by August 15th. Budgeting, objective, manage the project budget effectively, involving external stakeholders and ensuring thorough documentation. Metrics: budget variance, maintain a ±3% variance from planned budget. External stakeholder engagement, obtain budget approval from sponsors by week 3. Valuation, 0.3 example, planned budget, $600,000, actual budget, $582,000. Budget variance, -3%. External stakeholder engagement, budget approval obtained from sponsors by July 21st. Risk management, objective, identify and mitigate project risks to minimize potential impacts. Metrics: risk register completeness, maintain 100% completeness of the risk register. Mitigation plan execution, implement mitigation strategies for identified risks by week 6. Valuation, 0.2 example, risk identified, supplier delays in carbon fiber delivery. Mitigation, established backup supplier and expedited delivery options. Documentation, objective, ensure comprehensive project documentation for clarity and stakeholder engagement. Metrics: document control, maintain version control for all project documents. Stakeholder communication, distribute monthly project updates to stakeholders. Valuation, 0.2 example, document control, version control maintained for project charter, budget documents, and risk register. Stakeholder communication, monthly updates distributed to stakeholders highlighting project progress and upcoming milestones. By implementing these detailed metrics and scenarios, Larry Jeffers Race Cars can effectively manage the Lightweight Carbon Fiber Body Project, ensuring clear objectives, adherence to schedules, optimal budget management, proactive risk mitigation, and comprehensive stakeholder engagement throughout the project lifecycle. Course 3 Overview. Course Overview. Welcome to the third course in the Google Project Management Certificate Program. Focus: Project Planning Phase in the Project Life Cycle. Learn key components of a project plan: time estimation, milestone setting, budget management, procurement processes, risk management, communication planning, and project documentation. Instructors: current Google Project Managers providing hands-on approaches and best practices. Program structure and functionality designed for all types of learners, no previous experience required. Prepare for a career in project management, a rapidly growing field. Covers traditional project management foundations and insights into agile project management. Course content divided into 5 modules with various learning opportunities, videos featuring Google employees as instructors, readings introducing new ideas, case studies, and reinforcing concepts, discussion forums for deeper exploration and peer interaction, in-video questions to check understanding, practice quizzes for self-assessment, graded quizzes to measure progress, ungraded peer review activities for practical skill application, learning flexibility. Work at your own pace with personalized deadlines. No penalties for late assignments. Reset deadlines if needed. Complete all coursework to earn your certificate. Tips for success: complete all lessons in order to build on concepts progressively. Utilize readings and additional resources for comprehensive learning support. Review videos and readings as needed. Engage in discussion forums for clarification. Participate in all learning opportunities to maximize knowledge and experience. Conclusion: congratulations on starting your journey into project management. Enjoy the learning process and prepare for an exciting career ahead. This summary outlines the structure, objectives, and learning approach of Course 3 in the Google Project Management Certificate Program, providing a comprehensive overview for learners. Scenario: Larry Jeffers Race Cars, Advanced Chassis Development Project. Course focus: Project Planning Phase. Objective: develop an advanced chassis design for improved performance in drag racing. Metrics: project plan components, project charter. Objective: achieve 100% completion by week 1. Metric: project charter approved and signed off by all stakeholders by July 7. Example: start date, July 1. End date, July 7. Progress: completed the project charter, defining project scope and objectives, by July 7. Approved by all stakeholders by July 7. Stakeholder identification. Objective: identify all stakeholders by week 2. Metric: all key stakeholders identified and roles defined by July 14. Example: start date, July 8. End date, July 14. Progress: identified all key stakeholders and defined roles by July 14. Time estimation and milestones. Milestone achievement. Objective: achieve 90% milestone completion rate. Metric: 90% of milestones achieved as per schedule. Example: chassis design blueprint milestone. Start date, August 1. End date, August 15. Progress: achieved 100% completion of chassis design blueprints by August 15. Budget management, budget variance. Objective: maintain a ±3% variance from planned budget. Metric: actual expenditures within a ±3% of planned budget. Example: planned budget, $600,000. Actual budget, $582,000. Budget variance, -3%. External stakeholder engagement. Objective: obtain budget approval from sponsors by week 3. Metric: budget approval obtained from sponsors by July 21. Example: start date, July 15. End date, July 21. Progress: budget approval obtained from sponsors by July 21. Risk management, risk register completeness. Objective: maintain 100% completeness of the risk register. Metric: all identified risks documented with mitigation plans by week 6. Example: risk identified, supplier delays in carbon fiber delivery. Mitigation: established backup supplier and expedited delivery options. Communication and documentation, document control. Objective: maintain version control for all project documents. Metric: version control maintained for project charter, budget documents, and risk register. Example: progress: version control maintained for all critical project documents throughout the project lifecycle. Stakeholder communication. Objective: distribute monthly project updates to stakeholders. Metric: monthly updates distributed highlighting project progress and upcoming milestones. Example: progress: monthly updates distributed to stakeholders as scheduled. By applying these detailed metrics and scenarios, Larry Jeffers Race Cars can effectively manage the advanced chassis development project, ensuring meticulous planning, effective stakeholder engagement, risk mitigation, and transparent communication throughout the project lifecycle.